Hey, welcome into SportsMap Houston. I'm Brandon Strange. I'm joined by Jack Brame, my coworker here at SportsMap Houston as well. We're going to break down some Rockets for you. Before we do that, I want to invite all of you who are viewing this right now, please hit subscribe, like the content. If you like sports in Houston, you should follow us. We're following all the latest stories. Jack, I want to talk to you about Rockets and Wizards. Tuesday night was a revenge game for a couple of NBA superstars that were involved in one of the biggest trades last offseason, John Wall of the Rockets and Russell Westbrook of the Wizards. The game was not pretty, with the exception of an absolute vintage John Wall behind-the-back lefty layup. But the game reached a head when Wall and Westbrook got teed up toward the end of the game. They were talking trash to one another. What did you think of the exchange between Wall and Westbrook?
First of all, I love it because this is what we know Russell Westbrook to do. Last year in the playoffs against the Lakers, facing elimination, we Rockets fans saw it. Russell Westbrook was saying, y'all can't guard me. Y'all got to double me. And that's just – it's hilarious when you're down double digits and LeBron laughing at that time. Same thing here. Down double digits in the fourth quarter, a game that you will inevitably lose. And that's when Russell starts talking. So I think it's hilarious. Look, the Wizards are a bottom feeder this year. And the Rockets will be, I think they'll be a playoff team.
Well, what was funny was after the game, Houston Chronicles' Jonathan Fagan, or at least towards the end of the game, tweeted about how the trash talk may have included something about a first-round pick being included in the trade between the two, which if that's the case, that is some epic trash talk. If Russ dropped they needed to include a draft pick to make it even dig. That's really, really awesome. Of course, the rebuttal to that is the pick is lottery protected, so it's essentially valueless since the Wizards are almost assuredly a lottery team, as you mentioned. As of this recording, the Rockets are 16 games into the season. I don't think we need to ask who won that trade. This early on, the answer seems to be obvious. But what are your observations about that trade in general, like where we're at in this point of the season?
Well, and a big part of it was before the season, it felt like Rafael Stone did the best he could with what he had. Now it kind of looks like, man, he did pretty darn good just anyway in a vacuum. You got, it's a very heavily protected first-round pick that you got in return along with John Wall for Russell Westbrook. But John Wall is looking like the perfect leader for this team. When he's out there, the team looks different. They flow better. Boogie looks better. Eric Gordon has been playing very well recently. John Wall has been excellent for this Rockets team. And the whole thing in the early part of the season was that, Russell Westbrook has showed up early to practice, and he's dogging the young guys, and he's saying, you know what, I'm gonna drive this team. We're gonna be a winning team. And Russell was looking like a great leader out of the gate, whereas Wall had the whole COVID issue where he'd gotten a haircut, and it was all kind of weird, and he had to sit out some games. Well, now here we are almost a quarter of the way through the season, and it looks like the tables have kind of turned. Russell is bottom of the league in win shares per 48. He's bottom of the league in true shooting percentage. He's an inefficient player. He's not the MVP caliber player he once was. Russell symbolized kind of a decline for the Rockets. You traded Chris Paul along with 4 first-round picks, pick swaps and picks, but you traded all that away for Russell, and the Rockets noticeably got worse. And look, we're trading away James Harden. We're moving on into a new era of Rockets basketball. But John Wall symbolizes an optimism, no, you can't count us out kind of mentality. And I fully expect to see him be one of the major difference makers for the Rockets heading into a potential postseason run. And
if Wall represents, the optimism, and maybe if let's say, Christian Wood represents the future of the team. Let's say, Oladipo, I think, represents the unknown because there's a lot of potential there. Oladipo looks out of rhythm right now. And so we don't really know what this rotation looks like. What do you think this rotation is going to look like once they're healthy, once they can, work Oladipo back into games and Wall's playing consistently? Because between Wall and Oladipo, they're probably both going to be going through injury management protocols. And so they're not going to play second nights of back-to-backs and things like that. So, what do you see this roster looking like? Do you think they'll be healthy? And do you think that, what do you think they'll look like once they're all playing together.
We haven't seen the Rockets healthy at all season. We've always just been watching a version of the product where we'll say, well, once James Harden's gone, then we'll see what we look like. And then now James Harden's gone and we've got Oladipo in, but John Wall's not playing. And then Christian Wood goes down, and it's just, you've never seen this Rockets team as it's ideally set up to look. Eric Gordon has started 4 of the last 5 games. Is he going to continue to be a starter? What does this lineup look like? I think if they can get healthy, which that is a big question mark considering these guys and their injury histories, if they can get healthy and stay healthy, they're a playoff team. I think like not just trying to squeak into an 8th seed. I think they can be a 6 or a 7. They're starting to climb back up in the standings. They were 14 a couple of days ago. Now they're towards 11 and creeping towards just kind of that conglomerate of teams like the Mavericks and the Warriors who are in those kind of 7, 8, 9, 10 spots. If they can get into that mix, which, again, there's plenty of time. What are they going to do with guys like Oladipo and Eric Gordon as the trade deadline approaches? Maybe they could make a play for free agents this summer. I think their best realistic shot is to try and convince Victor Oladipo to stay. And if he can be himself, maybe 80 to 90% of himself from that 2016, 2017 Oladipo that we saw in Indiana, then that's a hell of a piece going forward.
If he does look like he's on a trajectory to be his old self, then I think that speaks well to where they're at. You mentioned another guy, Eric Gordon, who's a gigantic question mark for this team. He's always, it seems like, over the past, several years, Eric Gordon's always been the X factor on this team. John Wall, spoke really highly of Gordon or during the press conference on Tuesday, saying, Gordon could start for several teams in the league, but he's willing to take that sacrifice to make the team better. So that kind of puts the Rockets in an interesting situation, because if the Rockets aren't good enough to make the playoffs, or maybe if they're a fringe team and Eric Gordon continues to play well and his value's high, there's a big decision there that they need to make. They have to decide whether they're going to be buyers or sellers. And if they're sellers, then they may try to move Gordon. What could they get for Gordon? And also, like I said, I don't know that John Wall's going to love the idea of trading away, one of their scorers. What do you think? What do you see them doing with Gordon at the end of the season?
Yeah, it's like you said, it sends a message, where we're heading as a team. I think if they're looking good and looking like they could make a playoff push, I don't think Raphael Stone will deny them the opportunity to head into the playoffs as a unit like that. I think the right decision to make with Eric Gordon is to sell high. Eric Gordon has been a streaky player his entire career. He had early injuries in his career that stopped him from becoming maybe the player that he could have been. Eric Gordon's efficiency numbers have been good, and if he stays on the court and stays producing, I think you could get maybe a first-round pick for him if it's a low first-round pick. And the Clippers last year showed that they were willing to spend those first-round picks to pick someone up at the deadline like that. Last year they picked up Marcus Morris and spent more than one first-round pick. I think there is a contender out there who could use an Eric Gordon, and especially seeing what he's done historically in the playoffs. If he keeps this up, I think Eric Gordon is going to be a big factor for the Rockets going forward, whether they decide to deal him or not.